Grace. She's a social media strategist for Tucker. I have my own marketing company. I just kind of help out where I can. One of those areas being these monthly workshops we do. So if you haven't joined us before, welcome. We do this typically on the second Wednesday of the month, but keep an eye out for those dates. Sometimes they're different. And if you've been with us before, I appreciate you joining us. We're doing a new topic this morning. So we're going to be focusing on analytics. And I know when you hear that word, it just kind of sounds like too much, but it's very basic, honestly, on social media. And the point of this is to get you looking at your numbers so that you can figure out what you should even be creating. So we're going to I'm going to, towards the end, go over where you can view numbers on various platforms and how to do it, what you should be looking for. But first, I'm going to chat a little bit about what these different metrics mean and which ones you should care about and why, essentially. So, quick overview of what we'll focus on. Spotting successful content that you've put out there that, okay, that worked, and I can look at this number and know why it worked and what I should be doing more of. And interpreting those insights simply to help you plan smarter content strategies, because I don't want you guys wasting time throwing up whatever content works for you that day, whatever may seem easiest. I want it to actually do something for you, because otherwise it's just a complete waste of time, and what you don't have time to just throw at social media. So let's make sure it's actually doing something and moving the needle for you. We're going to go over what metrics actually matter and which ones aren't as important, so that you can just kind of breeze past, and how to track actual conversions on social media. I have an agency, so we deal a lot with clients and showing them numbers that explain, okay, here's what's actually happening on social media, because that can be tricky to do, because there's all kinds of different ways that people get to you to find your business, and figuring out how to actually get leads coming in from social media can be kind of hard to figure out. So, and then if we have some time at the end, of course, I always welcome questions. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, I don't want analytics, that word, to scare you. You really don't need advanced technical skills to be able to look at these platforms, look at their numbers. This is a screenshot here from Instagram. That's pretty much a good overview of everything you need to know right there. So why you even need to look at these numbers. And I'm going to say this several times throughout, but I just want to make sure we're clear that I don't want analytics or metrics or these numbers to be something that you ever obsess over or that keep you from creating, because it becomes too much of a mind block. It's not that deep. If you're not enjoying the content you're creating, your audience will be able to tell, and that won't help you either. But it's a good starting point to look at and say, okay, this is what my audience is saying to my content, how they feel about it, what actions they're taking with it. And it kind of tells you that story of what's working, what maybe we shouldn't put time into anymore. And hopefully we can figure out why. I won't lie to you, there's times where a piece of content will take off and there's no clear explanation as to why. Sometimes it's just luck. That's part of it too. So, but we'll look at kind of patterns and trends in our analytics to try to nail down some concrete strategy with it. Without analytics, obviously, you're just guessing. You're just either doing what everybody else is doing, or, doing what you've always done with no change. So it's important to at least occasionally make adjustments to your strategy. And we'll talk about how frequently, because again, I don't want you obsessing over these. It's just overall going to improve your content quality and save you time. I'm always trying to save people time on social media, because I get it. This is my whole life. My business, I try to spend less time on social media. So I want the same for you. So we're going to try to look at our numbers to clearly identify themes and formats that are working so we can spend more time on that. Okay, so first, how to quickly spot content that resonates. I use Instagram a lot as an example because they have the most simple platform. If you're already posting across multiple platforms, or if you're posting to Facebook and Instagram and kind of doing the same content, maybe optimizing it for each, but essentially the same content, Instagram's analytics are very simple to pull up and be able to see numbers like this very easily, categorized in order from best to least best. So I want to say worst because none of your content is bad. And we'll go over like the different ways you can look at those patterns. But basically, it's the simplest way to identify these highest performing posts. The top one, the one at the top, is your highest performing post. So let's study it and try to figure out why. You can check different analytics. Engagement is one that I tell people and that what we look at for clients first, because views can be random sometimes. Sometimes views and reach are just the algorithm picked it up and ran with it, and it may never happen again. You could do the same piece of content and it could get a third of that reach. So engagement tells us that people were interested enough to stop what they were doing and take some sort of action on that piece of content. Likes are the one we care about the least because that takes the least amount of effort for people to do, but they are good. Comments, a little bit more important, a little bit more valuable because people stopped and thought of something to comment on it or had some thought they wanted to share. And that's why we're always talking about making sure you add a call to action, telling people what you want them to do on your post. When you create a piece of content, it should always, always, always end with asking them a question, asking them to share this with a friend, telling them to visit your profile. We want to be able to, they won't do it if they don't know what you want them to do. And we want it to be as simple as possible for them. And this is why, because the more engagement that we get, the more people take those actions, the more our analytics will show that engagement was good. And in turn, when engagement is good, then reach gets sort of a boost naturally. So also, my favorite is looking at shares, because that means you shared something that was either valuable or relatable enough for someone to send it to a friend, share it to their stories or their Facebook feed. But something that they needed to hear or they think someone in their life needed to hear. And that is the point. We want our content getting in front of more eyes, and shares are the best way for that to happen. So we typically look at content that got the most shares and start with that and try to dissect why it was shared so many times and how we can repurpose this piece of content, recreate it. Another form of engagement that is good is profile visits or saves. So again, saves and shares kind of go hand in hand. Saves are something that people did because they want to come back to that post. They want to remember it. They don't have time to do that hack or that thing right now, but they want it. So saving it for later shows us that our content is valuable. And then, of course, profile visits. That's something you can look up in Instagram. Facebook will give you those numbers as well. And that tells us that people were interested enough in what we do to take action to look at our profile and find out more about us. That is like the ultimate. Yes, we want them clicking the link in our bio, contacting, hitting the contact now button, things like that. Them visiting our profile gets us closer to that. So try to make that whole process as simple as possible. So when you look at these top performing posts in these categories, which again, I promise I will show you how exactly to do it, but I just wanted to talk about why. We're trying to spot patterns. So what topics seem to be trending the most or resonating the most with your audience that are in these top couple of rows? What formats? So I can tell you from this, we have 2 reels at the top and a carousel post. That would be exactly what I would tell you to do. Video reels typically get the most engagement, reach. If you're going to do a static post, a carousel is the best kind you can do. The algorithm favors those. So carousel being if they at least have to swipe over one image, you could just have 2 pictures instead of one, and it can make that much of a difference. Or you can do like the carousel graphics, the infographics, those types are still working well also. That's not to deter you from sharing just static graphics. Obviously, we've got some of those in the top here as well. But that's what you're looking for when you're looking at your analytics is, okay, is there a trend in the type of content that I'm creating? And then what times repeatedly did well? So is that a factor? That's usually, of those 3 things, the least of my worries is what time, because that can be so random, but it doesn't hurt to look for trends, especially if you've heard me talk on this topic before. I will always tell you engagement changes with the seasons. So we're in summer now. Think about people's behavior and when they're online more and when they're on social media. It's typically later in the day. Again, it depends on your audience, but for clients right now, we are posting later than we do in the winter because people are busy throughout the day, not doing their scrolling until later now that we have more daylight. So just food for thought. So as far as topics goes, if you notice that things like if you start doing certain series, so to speak, like a neighborhood guide or local spotlights or something that are huge for realtors, if you notice that those are outperforming things like your staging tips or your home maintenance items, then double down on that neighborhood content, the local spotlights. Obviously, that's where you want to put your effort into what is working better and keep doing more of that. And so how much time really, like I said, I'll go over a checklist for a couple different time frames that I want you to check analytics, but basically a few minutes each month, just kind of reviewing this. It doesn't have to be anything too deep, but I do have methods for tracking conversions and stuff that we'll go over as well. But at least be clicking into this section of your profile, looking at the numbers, even if it is simple as looking at this page to see what your top performing posts for the last 30 days were. And then go from there to create your next month of content. You'll be able to, when we get to the professional dashboard, which I'll show you, you can filter it by the highest number of views or accounts reached, engagement, which is the one we want to focus on. And you can even get more specific with the post with the most saves and shares and things like that. So understanding your insights, what to pay attention to. I went over a lot of this already on the last slide, so I won't dig too much deeper into it, but these are your essentials. So this is kind of the basis of your checklist. Engagement is something that we love the most, comments, likes, and shares. Those saves, again, that indicate high value content. Profile visits, especially external link clicks, if we are getting them to sign up for our email list, if we are getting them to call us, get their free home valuation, sign up for our seller's guide, whatever that may be. And then reach and impressions, like I said, it's a great growth indicator that your audience is growing, that hopefully your follower growth is there. More accounts in general are seeing your content, but it is the most random sometimes. So I don't want you to put all your eggs in the reach and impressions basket, but these in general are the ones that I want you to focus on the most. And the ones I want you to ignore are follower numbers without any context. And there's multiple reasons for that. Facebook pages are really hard to grow your numbers on. If you're sharing them and asking people to like, you're sharing your page and asking people to like and follow your page, It's really how you got to do it these days, or share your content to your personal page so that people know to go follow your business page. Instagram is a little bit easier because you can do the outbound engagement that I'm always preaching about to kind of help boost your followers in an authentic way where people actually want to be there and stick around and engage with your content. But there's still tons of bot accounts on Instagram that you may get 5 and lose 4, essentially. So that is very normal to look at your follower growth and see that for the month, let's say you've gained 30 followers, but lost 15. A lot of those, don't take it personally. Tons of people aren't just unfollowing you. A lot of those accounts are getting deleted by Instagram. So that's why we don't like looking at follower numbers, because it doesn't really matter if either you're making tons of sales from social media or not. That's what matters more, are the conversions coming in. So follower count and likes on content are great. Again, you'll probably see a boost in likes if you have a reel that gets a lot of views. That video content, people are scrolling. That's easy to kind of rapid fire like for people. But if they're not actually taking any action, then what are your 55 likes doing for you? So those are two that I wouldn't get caught up in. They're nice to see, but don't get stuck on that. We want those meaningful interactions and conversations to get started. Okay, so engagement rate is something that you might hear about if you hear about analytics. It's confusing, I won't lie, because there's 2 totally different ways that you can track engagement rate. And it doesn't really matter which one you pick. I just insist that you always stick with it. Otherwise, your engagement rate will not make any sense. So engagement rate shows how actively involved your audience is with your post or with your content in general. So basically, it's how much engagement are you getting compared to how many impressions or how many followers you're getting or you have. So how to calculate it, engagement rate as a percentage, total engagement divided by either your total number of followers or impressions times 100. So the other thing that you have to be consistent with is, are you checking engagement rate on an individual piece of content or your page as a whole for a certain time frame? So to explain that a little bit further, when we give engagement rate to our clients, we check it quarterly to make sure that our engagement rate is being consistent. If it's not, or if it's dropping, essentially, that's the only reason we're going to change anything, if it's dropping, then what do we need to adjust? Where are we losing engagement? So we use the total engagement divided by total of followers for the page. So and that's every 90 days. So if you want to do that for every piece of content, that's fine, but make sure you're doing it for every piece of content and not this piece of content and then 30 days as a whole, because you're not comparing apples to apples anymore. So that's why I wanted to take a second to explain it, because if a lot of social media experts will talk on it, but not really go into what it means, and then freak people out when they say what number it should be at. And that's impossible to say if you're not explaining what method you're using to get to that number. So stick with the same time frame and the same method every time if you're going to compare time frames, that type of thing. So for the impressions method, if you're doing total engagement, let's say you're doing total engagement for the month, I think this was like a 30-day number, 492 divided by the total impressions for the month, the engagement rate is 1.37. Standard across all industries, it varies by industry, is 1 to 3.5% for that method. And we typically, for the engagement to follower method, we try to be closer to 3 to 4% at a minimum for clients. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Okay, so we've gone over a lot of this surface level already. but I want to make sure I'm hitting on what type of content is good for which type of analytics. So again, that high saves content is showing that your content is helpful, educational, something they want to revisit, something that it kind of gives them that personal experience feel, or it could be something relatable that they want to come back to that message when they need to hear it again. So that fits into that category too. So those are that's content where you're sharing your personal experience, bite-sized tips. Again, I always talk about bite-sized tips because we don't want master classes on social media, but that's the type of content if you want to start getting more saves that you should be starting with and seeing what types of topics under those categories work well. And then if you're wanting to achieve more shares in your content, that's where really think about relatable messaging and something that you would share with your best friend or your spouse or your mom. Like who do you want to reach with your message, and who do you think is most likely to share it and will relate to you? And the more authentic it is, the better. So this is thoughts that pop into your head, stories, local spotlights. This can tie into real estate loosely. It can tie directly into real estate, or it can just be something that your target audience will relate to just as a person. It doesn't necessarily have to be industry specific. So if you're wanting to improve on your share rate, that's the type of content I would focus on. And then profile visits on your content, you've got to tell people that you want them to take some action on your profile. That's the most effective way to get people to your profile. You will get curious people if you create a good piece of content that has good reach, and they'll come check out what you're all about. But for the most part, in your content, telling them, hey, I have something for you in my profile. If you go there and take this action, you will be rewarded. So I mentioned a couple of general ideas, but whatever, if you have a freebie that you could create, that's what I always recommend, something that people want, that you could get them to sign up for your email list, a move prep guide, a seller's guide, something that's unique to you, or of course, like the free home valuations, if those, I don't know if those are still a thing, but that has to be something, right? So if you want them to sign up for your email list, something like that, or if you want them to send you a direct message to start the conversation, be clear about that in your call to actions on your content, and you'll start noticing higher profile visits from your content. Make sure also, if you want people to visit your profile, make sure it looks good. So make sure you're optimizing your bio, updating your profile picture. It should always be a picture of you versus any kind of logo. Make sure your name and your username clearly point out what it is you do. You're in real estate. Don't make anyone guess that. And where you're located. Those are the biggest things. Don't make them have to search that you are located in Indiana and that you sell real estate. Those need to be within the first half a second. People can determine that from your bio. And then make sure that whatever action you're asking them to take, you clearly lead them into that next step and make it as easy as possible, because people are, I hate to use the word lazy, but we just have a lot going on. So if it takes more than a couple seconds to get to what we're trying to do, it's, on to the next thing. Okay, so how to use these numbers to start planning your content smarter. Create a simple routine. I've said it before, I'm all about easy, simplified methods for this. So again, a monthly check-in of analytics is that's what I recommend, because that's what we're doing for our full client roster. We take a deeper dive each quarter and do actual reports and make strategy adjustments as necessary. But monthly, we're looking at, okay, let's not do that again, or let's do more of this, just by looking at those top performing versus lowest performing posts. So monthly, it just takes a couple minutes to get in that routine, and it gets kind of fun. Once you start creating content regularly, that's the thing. Even if you're only posting a couple times a week, as once a week, even if it's consistent enough over a month or two, you'll start getting those numbers. It starts getting fun to look at what did better than something else, and use those numbers, use that data to then build your content calendar based on those successful posts that you had from the previous month or previous quarter. Again, this is something that if you've heard me speak before, I've said it 1,000 times, but you don't have to create new content every day. You shouldn't be. You should be repurposing content that worked last month or 2 months ago or 3 months ago, because there's tons of people who didn't see it the first time, or people that need to hear the message again, or definitely don't remember what you posted. So that's why we have analytics to use, so we can say, okay, this was worth my time. How can I repurpose this piece of content? Can I just totally reuse it, duplicate it? It's your content. You can do whatever you want with it. Or maybe change the video, change the graphic, change the wording on the caption a little bit to make it even better. So use that proven strategy that you're already building to make your next content calendar. It'll make planning easier, and it'll make your consistency easier to achieve. And also use this if you've ever been a person who struggled with, I don't know what to post. I always say start with content buckets or content pillars. So you have those 3 or 4 topics that you're always pulling from. So it could be real estate education, it could be home ownership, relatability, or tips. And then it could be something from your personal life, not overly personal, but something that makes you a real human that people relate to outside of real estate. Just those are my 3 general topic ideas. Sometimes people don't know what they want those 3 or 4 content buckets to be. So if you start posting a lot of different stuff and then see which topics work the best, that can help you really narrow down your content buckets, or get them narrowed down even farther if yours are pretty broad and you want to get even more narrowed down with who you're talking to, your target audience, or what you're talking about. This will help with that as well. So what conversion, the word conversion on social media, what does that really mean? What do we want to get out of all of this? Why are we spending time looking at graphs and data and numbers and percentages? Meaningful audience action is what we're going for. That's not always, okay, within a month I had a deal closed with these people, but if you have made a connection with a lead that you wouldn't have gained without social media, that is the start of a conversion, right? So a potential client reaching out via DM, whether that's you posted a story about, don't forget about stories either. We're not just looking at content. You can look at analytics for stories, see how many people viewed those, how many people replied to those, that type of thing. Sorry, little side note, I didn't want to forget. But that's where you get a lot of people reaching out via DMs. They may reply to a story of you showing homes, and you're just doing a quick pan of some of the homes you're showing, and someone may say, oh my, where is this? I love it. That kind of conversation starter. If you get people visiting your website or your landing page, so those profile visits we look at as conversions, because if our client has a good client process set up on their end, we're good to go. Once we get them to the profile, it's taken care of. So getting people to your website or landing page, wherever that may be. Or if it's a more specific action, like we're trying to build an email list, then signing up for your newsletter is another conversion to track. Or of course, if you're booking a meeting or phone call with someone from social media, that's another form of conversions. So I tell you this so that you can kind of decide for yourself what a conversion on social media is for you, because what's the point if you don't have any, if you're not achieving any conversions? And it can be simple. They don't have to be, again, closing a sale within 30 days from social media. But if you don't have any conversions that you're trying to track, you're just posting because everybody else is posting, I don't want you wasting your time with that. So track whatever conversion means to you. You can just do what we've talked about so far, and that could be looking at the built-in platform insights, which are, okay, I got X number of link clicks, button taps this month. My goal was this, or, I either didn't meet or beat my goal. Keep track of that somewhere, so you can, track your performance. Are things improving? What things do I need to adjust to make them improve? Set those clear goals and measure monthly. I mean, you could use your CRM. I'm not super familiar with the CRM but you guys use, but I know you have one where you could put leads in from social media, or just a simple spreadsheet. I'm a spreadsheet girl. You gotta pry these spreadsheets from my cold dead hands. So either way, just have something to be able to look back at while you're tracking these analytics. So I promised you these checklists that we're going to go over briefly. So weekly, if you're posting pretty frequently or pretty regularly, at least, if you're wondering how often to post, 3 to 4 times a week are what we do for clients that see growth, see conversions, and that is extremely consistent, obviously. I always preach consistency is more important. So if 2 posts a week is more doable for you than 2 posts a week, that's great. I'm saying this number because weekly doesn't make sense if you're not posting every week. Or if you're posting once a week, you won't have anything to compare it to. So weekly makes sense if you do that 3 to 4 range, compare your top performing to your lowest performing post. And if you're only looking at the weekly picture, you're not going to get the full thing, but you can see, okay, which day of the week worked better. If I posted about the same sort of topic all week or similar topics, what time of day, what day of the week worked better? Typically, we can guess based on our client audience. We have like set days of the week that we've posted. After a couple months, we look at the numbers of which weekdays do best and do worst, and then schedule our content around that. So it's a good place to look to get a little bit more structure going. And then your monthly checklist, you can look a little bit more at your overall growth for the month. Again, I don't want you to get stuck on that monthly number of followers. I mean, there may be months where you just lose followers, like you gained some, but you lost more than you gained. I don't want that to discourage you. So that's why I say don't spend too much time on the monthly checklist with the vanity metrics. But your overall growth in reach, those saves, share specific posts, engagement, profile visits, look at those monthly, just because it's an easy last 30 days over the previous 30 days to kind of gauge if we're growing or staying about the same, or if we're losing traction. And then generate your new content ideas. We talked about that, build that content calendar, and adjust any upcoming content that you already had planned if you see something that jumps out in these insights. And then the quarterly checklist, this is where you can look a little bit deeper at comparing those growth metrics that we talked about. So this is when I want you to run your engagement rate from, quarter 1, quarter 2, so on, and compare those. And then you can look at follower growth, website clicks, direct messages, inquiries, that type of thing, quarterly. And then continued on that, identify some broader trends when you look at those past 90 days numbers. So which topics consistently perform the best? So again, look at those top couple of rows. We're using Instagram as an example. Those top couple of rows of posts. What patterns did you notice? Which topics perform the best? Anything seasonal or related to events, those typically do well. So you could pull from that data. And make sure when you look at these quarterly findings that you're adjusting your strategy. You're actually making some changes or setting clear objectives. So we talked about those content pillars and refining those based on, maybe one of your topics just consistently month over month, whenever you talk about it, it's crickets. So maybe we ditch that and we pick a different content pillar, content bucket to speak from. And adjust your posting frequency, your engagement strategy. You guys know I preach outbound engagement. So you should be spending time, if you want to get engagement on your posts, you should be spending time commenting and engaging with other accounts on social media. Local businesses are a great place to start in your industry. It just gets your account name, username in front of more eyes because they have more eyes on their content typically. And those are things that you will notice a bump in your analytics if you spend time doing. And then maybe you need to bump up your posting frequency from 2 to 3 times a week, or just get more consistent with that 2 times a week and stop missing gaps of posting. So comparing quarter over quarter just gives you more of a big picture to look at what has really changed or what has stayed consistent. So I am not an affiliate for this company, but I swear you would think I am. Metricool is the scheduling tool that our company uses. I'm obsessed with it. It works well for scheduling. It's a very simple platform. That's why we use it. It's very, very simple. And they have beautiful, beautiful reports. We just click a few buttons and get these very fancy PowerPoint reports printed out for us. And they're very easy to read. So if that is something that interests you, I can't 100% say with certainty, but I believe that Metricool is still free for one brand. So if it's just you, no matter how many platforms you have, it should still be free, and you can get those reports and everything free as well. Okay, so if you want to pull up your platforms, we'll go step by step here. And this is being recorded, as well as I will send the presentation to Grace. So if you need to look back at these slides later to kind of figure out or remember how to go through each of these platforms, don't worry. I'll try not to go too fast, and I've got all kinds of stuff in my way here. So bear with me a second while I try to get this rearranged. There we go. Okay, so this is for Facebook, and this is a general overview on just to give you a feel for what it looks like. On the next slide, I have the step by step. So I'll see if it'll let me jump back and forth. I'm not 100% sure that it will, but I wanted to kind of give you a feel for what I'm talking about on the next slide. So once you're in your Facebook, navigate to your business page. It should be separate now from your, you should have a separate business page that you can toggle over to versus your personal page. And yeah, I don't know why it won't let me go backwards. There we go. Okay. What I mean by that separate page is up here at the top, how it shows that logo. If you click that arrow, that's how you can toggle between your personal and your business page. And I will take a moment to preach having a business page. I know a lot of people tell me they have all of their connections on their personal page, and I totally get that. And if you post the same content to both, what I recommend is having a business page and then sharing that business page content to your personal page so that people see that it's from your business page. Anyway, I won't stay on this soapbox long, but you don't get analytics on your personal page. That's the biggest reason I suggest it. But then also you can't schedule things in advance, that type of thing. So once you're to your business page, this is kind of the setup you get on the left side. You want to get to professional dashboard. That's where we're at. And it might be called insights. Everyone's is a little bit different. And you want to look at that overview page that we were just on. So that will show you a summary. It typically defaults to the past 30 days, and it will show you your overall reach, interactions, and new page likes. And then if you want to, hold on, there we go. If you want to get more specific on individual pieces of content to see how they did get past your overview, you'll click on this content tab, and that will take you to a deeper look at these individual pieces. You can sort them by their reach, views, interactions to see what got the most, see what got the least, etc. Okay, so this helps. Obviously, those engagement metrics that I mentioned are what we're looking at. So you can easily identify what is top performing by looking at those. You can filter a little bit deeper into time frame if you want to get more detailed data, like we talked about, like if you're going to do quarterly. The reason I preach Metricool for their analytics is it will put all of your platforms that you use in one analytics tab, and it will show you graphs for each platform. So that just simplifies things so that you don't have to figure out Facebook's method of analytics and how they display their analytics, plus Instagram's, plus TikTok, plus LinkedIn, whatever you're using. It will all be on one tab in your scheduling tool. So just keep that in mind. If I get through all these instructions and you're like, absolutely not, I would rather just look at it in one place, sign up for Metricool, test that out for a month, see how it goes. And then the audience tab is the only other one I wanted to point out, because that will give you a more detailed look at the demographics of who's interacting with your content. So again, that's just this little button down here. It will explain like age range, where people are located that are looking at your content. So that helps as well, kind of determine who is listening to you currently, if it's who you're trying to reach, or if you need to make some adjustments there as well. Okay. Thank you, Grace, for adding that in there. Oops, sorry. I got another pop-up in my way now. There we go. Okay, so Instagram, as I mentioned, is going to play through this little video. So let me just walk you through this video, and then I'll talk through this step by step. So if you go to your profile and you click on, oh, have mercy. Okay, you're looking at your profile, you click on professional dashboard. It'll take you to this window, shows all the different analytics that we've talked about. If you go to views, it gets a little bit deeper on that. Again, it defaults to the last 90 days. It'll show by top content. You can select the date range if you want a very specific date range, or it gives you these automatic ones like the last week, the last 2 weeks. We typically would manually put in last 90 days if we were using this. And then you can do that for each one. You'll have to change the date range for each one, but you can see, again, it sorts top posts automatically. It's very simple to go in and easily see your top posts in certain categories. So this is what I think I might have showed this one earlier by views. If you click on that little filter tab, these are all the different metrics that you can sort by. So if we wanted to see the number with the most comments, this one shares, this one had the most shares for the month. It gives you lots of different ways that you can look at your content. So this is the step-by-step to that, because I know it went fast. But go to your profile. You have to have a professional or creator account in order to have analytics. So again, have a business page. You don't have to have two separate on Instagram, honestly, because The only difference is that on the professional accounts, it can show your business address, like you can put in your city and state. You can put in contact buttons so that people can just click to email you, click to call, whatever. You don't have to have those, but I really highly recommend having one of those so that you can look at your analytics. And this is again called the professional dashboard. It's just right underneath your bio when you're looking at your own profile. And start with the overview. It defaults to the last 30 days of all these different things we looked at. You can click on any of those to go to top performing posts, and then you can change the metric that you want to search by. So you could click on views, look at the top performing posts. We're like halfway down. And then when you click on top performing posts, it gives you that little filter slide that you can change to reach, shares, saves, link clicks, but profile visits, all those different things to look at to find your top performing posts. And you may see the same post is at the top for multiple categories. That's typically a good marker to know, okay, that one just won across the board. Let's dissect this post and figure out why. And then I showed you adjusting the date range. And then their Instagram has a lot of other tools. You don't need a lot of them, so I wouldn't let that overwhelm you too much. But like this leads thing is new, and honestly, we haven't figured it out completely yet, so I wouldn't mess with that. But the monthly recap, it just kind of tells you basically what I'm telling you to do on your monthly checklist, what you created in the past month and what did well and what didn't. And then inspiration will take you to, this may take some tweaking. It may take you engaging with some content to get it down. It's sort of like your explore page or your For You page, but Instagram is trying to give you content to look at that it thinks you may want to see as inspiration for your own content. So, I mean, it may not be useful right away if you haven't created a ton yet or you haven't engaged a ton yet, but it could be the more the more time you spend on it. And then best practices are just some videos. If you are looking for basically continuing ed on social media or Instagram, if you're looking for some basics, it couldn't hurt just to kind of get you started, get you rolling. LinkedIn, in my opinion, has the most simple analytics. And this one, you can look at analytics if you are just using your personal profile. This is the only one that I won't push as a personal brand that you have to have a business page, but they're great if you do. So that's just a personal preference, really. The analytics on the personal accounts are even smaller, even more simple, but it does show, I think, like your profile visits and maybe your post reach for the month. Can't remember off the top of my head. But this is the step-by-step for a business page where you can get the follower information, get a little bit deeper dive into specific content, how each of those did. So on that left, if you have a business page on that left-hand side, you'll click analytics. And then the content tab shows you an overview of the major analytics we want to look at: impressions, reactions, followers shows you how much you've grown, and follower demographics, who's looking at your content. And then for each individual post analytic, you have to go to your feed, like view it as a member and look at that individual piece of content. Now I think it's called preview results. It used to say like analytics or something. And review for that specific post. It gives you a lot of numbers, and it even gives you the engagement rate for that specific post. So those are things that can be helpful on LinkedIn if that's a platform you're using for business. And then you can also export data. So I don't know if this is a big platform that you focus on, that could be useful for further tracking, especially if you're finding leads here. Couldn't hurt to do that. So that's pretty much a wrap. I just want to kind of recap the fact that I know this may have sounded like a lot of data and a lot of numbers, but it's really designed to just simplify your content decisions, because you don't want to sit down looking at a blank calendar, looking at a blank scheduling tool, whatever, Canva page, and not sure what to post. This starting to post, if you're starting from ground zero, do that initially, and then keep checking every couple weeks, every month, to see what is working. It just gives you that place to make adjustments from an informed place to make decisions. And then again, those key metrics, engagement rate, saves, profile visits, reach, those are the ones I want you to focus on. Stay consistent with your calculations and your tracking methods. Otherwise, you'll get frustrated and confused. And then those regularly scheduled reviews. If I'm giving you permission to just do it quarterly, if that's what works for you. I mean, I'm admitting that's what our agency does, is we take that deep dive quarterly. And that is when we have strategy calls with clients to let them know of successes or failures or adjustments that we're making for the next quarter, or what our plans are. Because it's also a lot of stuff with social is seasonal. So you should be looking at it quarterly anyway. There's ebbs and flows in real estate. So, I mean, it just makes sense to do that as well. I think that's it. Yeah. So if you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat. I will try my best to answer them. And again, Grace, put in the chat if you would like a copy of the presentation. I send those to her as soon as we get off this call, so that she can email them to anyone who missed a slide or needs to go back and look at something. And then I believe this is also recorded. It will live somewhere. It's recorded. I don't remember exactly where it lives, but you can get that as well if there's anything that you need to re-listen to. So thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
This is recorded and it'll be on the Tucker Training YouTube channel. If you guys did want to go there and look at it, it takes me like an hour for it to get uploaded. So typically around like lunchtime, it's up on the Tucker Training YouTube channel.
Awesome. Thank you.